I signed our $2 million house away from my cheating husband while he was with his mistress. And what happened next, when he discovered I'd legally stolen everything he thought was his, destroyed him in ways he never saw coming. I'm so glad you're here. If you're watching this video, please like and subscribe to my channel and tell me in the comments where you're listening to my story of revenge from. I want to know how far it's traveled. I sat at the kitchen island of our waterfront estate, the silence as thick as morning fog, a silence that had become a constant, unwelcome guest. The grandfather clock in the foyer, an antique I'd purchased at auction when we first made our fortune in real estate 38 years ago, ticked with a relentless, accusatory rhythm. Each beat a painful reminder of a life I was beginning to suspect was a beautiful, meticulously crafted lie. My husband Richard had just returned from what he called a property inspection. He looked not merely exhausted, but haunted, as if he carried the weight of a secret too heavy to bear. His face was a map of fatigue and guilt, lines etched around his eyes and mouth that had never been there before. He tossed his Armani jacket on the Italian leather sofa I'd selected, loosened his silk tie as if it were a noose he was desperate to escape, and headed straight to the master suite without even acknowledging me. The faint scent of his expensive Tom Ford cologne hung in the air, but it was mixed with a new, alien fragrance. A sweet, floral perfume that felt like an intrusion, a brazen confession from a life I didn't know he was living. This wasn't the smell of construction sites and property walkthroughs. This was something else, something intimate, something wrong. A few minutes later, the gentle rhythm of his snoring filled the house, a sound that once brought me comfort, but now felt like a mocking lullaby, a lullaby for a fool. I got up, moving with the quiet, practiced grace of a wife of 38 years, and began to organize the mess he'd left scattered across the entryway. His briefcase, his phone, his keys, a stack of property documents. His phone screen was still on, a new email glowing like a sinister omen. I frowned. Richard rarely checked email at night. He always said, "Catherine, after 6 p.m., business can wait." But here was an email, opened, recent. Out of a morbid curiosity that felt both wrong and necessary, I picked up the phone. The email was short, a mere handful of words that would shatter my world. "Tonight was perfect, baby. I can't wait until that old woman is out of the house and it's just ours. Love you always. N." I froze, as if someone had slapped me. The digital world, a cruel mirror reflecting a truth I was too terrified to see. That old woman. Me. Someone was calling me that. Someone who wanted me out of my own house. Someone who was in love with my husband. A shiver ran through me, not from cold, but from a profound, bone-deep fear. It felt like a cold wind coming in through a crack in the door of my life, revealing a secret chamber I never knew existed. I scrolled up through the email thread, my thumb trembling. More messages appeared, dozens of them. The sender was listed as n.morrison@horizonproperties.com. I recognized that domain. Horizon Properties. That was the boutique real estate firm where Richard had been consulting for the past year. Helping them, he said, with their high-end listings. Using his decades of experience to mentor their younger agents. I opened more emails. My heart pounded harder with each one. The house appraised at $2. 1M. Once you get her to sign the transfer papers, we sell it and split the profit. Then we can finally be together full-time. I saw that pathetic old woman at the grocery store today. She has no idea. You're such a good actor around her, baby. When do you think she'll sign? I want to start our new life together. I'm tired of pretending. My hands started shaking so violently I almost dropped the phone. I took screenshots, my fingers moving on autopilot while my brain struggled to process. I sent them to my own email, then carefully placed Richard's phone back exactly where I'd found it. They weren't just having an affair. They were plotting to steal my house. Our house. The waterfront estate I'd found, negotiated for, and overseen the renovation of 20 years ago. The house where I'd raised our daughter. The house that was supposed to be my security, my retirement, my legacy. I glanced toward the bedroom and saw Richard's form in the bed, still and peaceful in sleep. A stark and infuriating contrast to the storm raging inside me. My heart pounded like a thief's, a frantic, guilty beat. I went to Richard's briefcase and opened it carefully. Inside were property contracts, business cards, and a folder labeled Riverside Property Transfer, Confidential. I opened it with trembling hands. Inside were documents. Legal documents. Transfer of deed forms for our house. Our $2 million waterfront home. The forms showed the house being transferred from Richard and Catherine Ashford, joint tenants, to Richard Ashford, sole owner. My signature line was blank, waiting for me to sign, waiting for Richard to trick me into signing away my own home. There was a sticky note attached in Richard's handwriting. Tell C, these are refinancing papers. She never reads the fine print. Get signature by end of month. The casual cruelty of it took my breath away. She never reads the fine print. He was counting on my trust, counting on 38 years of marriage to make me sign without looking, counting on me being the fool he apparently thought I was. I took photos of every page, documented everything. Then I closed the briefcase and put it back exactly as I'd found it. My mind was racing now, not with panic, but with cold, calculating fury. I needed more information. I needed to know who N was. I needed to understand the full scope of this betrayal. I went to Richard's laptop, sitting on the kitchen counter. He'd left it open, unlocked. Another stroke of arrogance. I searched his email for N. Morrison. Hundreds of messages appeared. I clicked on the first one and my stomach dropped. The profile photo showed a woman in her late 30s, attractive in a polished, professional way. Blonde hair, bright smile, expensive suit. The email signature read, Natalie Morrison, Senior Agent, Horizon Properties. I remembered her now. Richard had mentioned her. Brilliant young agent, he'd said. Really understands the luxury market. I'm helping her close some big deals. He'd brought her to one of our charity galas 6 months ago. She'd shaken my hand, complimented my dress, asked about my real estate investment portfolio. And all the while, she'd been sleeping with my husband, planning to steal my house. I opened more emails. The affair had been going on for at least a year, maybe longer. Love notes, explicit messages, photos I couldn't unsee. And woven through it all, constant references to the plan. Once we have the house, we'll have enough capital to start our own firm. She's so clueless. Yesterday, she thanked me for mentoring me. I almost laughed. Your wife is so old and boring. I can't wait until you're free of her. The words burned like acid. Old, boring, clueless. This woman, this Natalie Morrison, had stood in my home, drunk my champagne, and thought these things about me, and Richard had agreed, had encouraged it, had planned to rob me and leave me with nothing. The rage that filled me was ice cold, not the hot, explosive anger that makes people do stupid things. This was steel. This was calculation. This was the fury of a woman who'd spent 4 decades building a life, a portfolio, a fortune, only to discover the man she'd built it with was planning to steal it all. I couldn't just confront Richard. He'd lie. He'd manipulate. He'd probably convince me I was crazy, that I'd misunderstood. I needed irrefutable proof. I needed professional help, and I needed to protect my assets immediately. I looked at the clock. 11:47 p.m. Too late to call anyone, but I could research, plan, prepare. I opened my own laptop and started searching. How to protect assets from spouse. Emergency property transfer. Divorce lawyer specializing in fraud. I read for hours, learning, understanding. By 3 a.m., I had a plan forming, a multi-layered plan that would ensure I lost nothing, that would ensure Richard's betrayal cost him everything. The next morning, Richard left early for a property showing. He kissed me on the forehead like he'd done 10,000 times before. Love you, Kath. Don't work too hard today. Love you too, I replied automatically. The words tasted like ash. The moment his car pulled out of the driveway, I made my calls. First, I called Margaret Chen, a woman I'd known for 20 years through our real estate investment group. Margaret was a divorce attorney, one of the best in the state. Margaret, it's Catherine Ashford. I need to see you today. It's urgent. My husband is trying to steal our house. There was a pause. Catherine, come to my office at noon. Bring everything you have. Second, I called Patricia Grant, an old college friend who'd helped me navigate difficult situations before. Patricia, remember that private investigator you mentioned? The one who helped your sister? Oh no. Catherine, what's happening? I need his number. Now. By noon, I was sitting in Margaret Chen's office, a sleek space in a downtown high-rise. I laid out everything, the emails, the photos of the transfer documents, the evidence of the affair. Margaret's face grew darker with each piece of evidence. Catherine, this is attempted fraud. Your husband is trying to steal marital property through deception. This is serious. Can I stop him? I asked. Stop him? Catherine, you can do better than that. You can beat him to it. She leaned forward. The house is currently in joint tenancy, correct? Yes, both our names on the deed. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to file an emergency motion with the court. We'll present this evidence of attempted fraud. We'll argue that you need protection from financial abuse. And we'll ask the judge to allow an emergency transfer of the property solely into your name to prevent the fraud from being completed. Can we do that? With this evidence? Absolutely. He's literally documented his intent to defraud you. He signed his own confession. Margaret smiled grimly. Catherine, by the end of this week, that house will be yours alone, and there's nothing he can do about it. How fast can we move? I'll file the emergency motion this afternoon. We'll have a hearing within 48 hours. In cases of imminent financial fraud, judges move quickly. But Catherine, you need to act completely normal at home. If Richard suspects anything, he might try to act first. Can you do that? I've been acting normal for 38 years, I said. I can act a little longer. That afternoon, I met with the private investigator, James Chen. No relation to Margaret, but equally competent. He was a serious man in his 50s with observant eyes. Mrs. Ashford, I've reviewed the evidence you emailed. This is quite thorough. You've done half my job already. I need more, I said. I need photos, videos, documentation of the affair that will be undeniable in court. I can do that. Your husband is careless. That makes my job easier. He made notes. I'll start surveillance immediately, but I'm curious about your timeline. What's your endgame here? I want to transfer the house into my name legally, and I want him to find out when it's too late to stop it, when he's with her, when he thinks he's won. James smiled slightly. You're not looking for revenge, you're looking for justice. I'm looking for both, I corrected. Over the next 3 days, I played the role of perfect wife. I cooked Richard's favorite meals. I asked about his day. I smiled and nodded when he talked about his consulting work. All while Margaret worked behind the scenes, filing motions, preparing evidence, scheduling the emergency hearing. James worked too. He followed Richard, photographed him with Natalie, documented them at expensive restaurants, hotels, even at a property showing where they were clearly not looking at the house. The photos were damning, intimate, undeniable. On day 3, James called me. Mrs. Ashford, I have something you need to hear. He sent me an audio file. He'd managed to plant a recording device in Richard's car. I put in earbuds and pressed play. Richard's voice. The papers are ready. I just need Catherine to sign them. I'm going to tell her they're refinancing documents. She'll sign without reading. Natalie's voice. When? End of this week. Then we file the transfer, sell the house, and we're free. Free of that old hag. My hands clenched. Old hag. That's what I was to them. Natalie continued. I can't wait. That house is worth over $2 million. Split the equity, and we can start fresh. Just you and me, baby. No more pretending around your boring wife. She's not just boring, Richard laughed. She's clueless. Yesterday I left the transfer papers on the counter, and she didn't even look at them. Just moved them to wipe down the granite. They both laughed. The sound made me want to scream. Once we're together full-time, we can build an empire, Natalie said. Your experience, my youth and energy, will be unstoppable. Exactly, Richard agreed. Catherine has no vision. Never did. She just got lucky with a few investments. I'm the one who built our portfolio. I deserve that house. I earned it. The lies were breathtaking. I'd found every property we owned, negotiated every deal, managed every renovation. Richard had been the face, the schmoozer, but I'd been the brains. And now he was claiming credit for my life's work. I saved the audio. More evidence, more ammunition. On day 4, Margaret called. Catherine, we got it. The judge signed the emergency order. As of 9 a.m. this morning, your house is in your name only. The deed has been recorded with the county. It's done. It's legally yours. I felt a wave of relief so powerful it nearly knocked me over. Richard doesn't know? Not unless he checks the county records, which most people don't do. You have a window here, Catherine. What are you planning? I'm planning to let him try to complete his fraud. I want to watch him realize he has nothing. that he lost everything. Be careful, Margaret warned. Cornered animals are dangerous. That night, Richard came home in an excellent mood. Kath, I have some papers for you to sign. Just routine refinancing stuff. Interest rates are great right now. It'll save us money. He pulled out the transfer documents, the same ones I'd photographed days ago. The ones that would make him sole owner of my house. Sure, honey, I said sweetly. Let me just read through them first. Richard's smile faltered. Oh, you don't need to read all that legal jargon. I already reviewed it with the attorney. Just sign here and here. I always read what I sign, Richard. You know that. I picked up the documents and started reading carefully, watching his face as I did. He was nervous now, fidgeting. Kath, really, it's just standard stuff. I flipped to the page showing the transfer. Saw my signature line. Saw the part that would make him sole owner. Richard, this isn't a refinance. This is a transfer of deed. This would remove my name from the house entirely. His face went pale, then red. No, you're reading it wrong. That's just legal language. It's complicated. I understand legal language perfectly, I said calmly. This would make you the sole owner of our house. Why would I sign that? It's for tax purposes, he stammered. The attorney said. Which attorney? I interrupted. What's their name? Let me call them right now and verify. Richard started sweating. Look, Catherine, I don't appreciate you questioning me. I've been handling our finances for decades. No, I said, standing up. I've been handling our finances for decades. You've been spending them, and now you're trying to steal from me. That's insane, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. I would never. Jedut, I said quietly. What? Get out of my house, right now. This is my house too, Richard shouted. Actually, I said, pulling out the county deed from my purse. It's not. As of yesterday morning, this house is in my name only. You have no legal claim to it whatsoever. So get out, or I'll call the police and have you removed for trespassing. Richard's face went through a series of expressions. Confusion, disbelief, rage. That's impossible. You can't just transfer. I can when you're trying to defraud me, I said. I have the emails, Richard. The ones between you and Natalie Morrison. I have the fake transfer papers. I have recordings of you planning to trick me into signing away my home. I have everything. He stood there, frozen, as the reality sank in. How long have you known? Long enough to protect myself, long enough to make sure you get exactly what you deserve, which is nothing. Catherine, please, we can work this out. I made a mistake. I'll end it with Natalie. We can go to counseling. The only thing we're going to is divorce court, I said. My attorney will be in touch. You have 1 hour to pack a bag and leave. After that, I'm calling the police. Richard tried to argue, tried to plead, tried to threaten, but I stood firm. And exactly 57 minutes later, he left, a suitcase in hand, his life crumbling around him. I watched his car pull out of the driveway, watched him drive away from the house that was no longer his, the house he'd tried to steal, the house that was now, legally and completely, mine. But I wasn't satisfied yet. The house was just the beginning. Richard and Natalie had planned to destroy me, mock me, steal from me. Now I would ensure their betrayal cost them everything. Their reputations, their careers, their future. I pulled out my phone and opened the folder of evidence. Photos, emails, audio recordings. Everything I needed to destroy them both. And I was just getting started. Previously on the story of revenge, I discovered my husband Richard was having an affair with Natalie Morrison, a real estate agent. They were planning to trick me into signing away our $2 million house, but I was 10 steps ahead. I got an emergency court order transferring the house entirely into my name. When Richard tried to get me to sign the fake papers, I confronted him and kicked him out. He thought I'd ruined his plan. He had no idea what was really coming. When I discovered my husband and his mistress were planning to steal my home, I knew silence wasn't an option. Only complete and total exposure would do. And what I planned next would destroy not just their relationship, but their entire careers. Richard called me 17 times the first night. I didn't answer. He sent text after text, each one more desperate than the last. Catherine, please, we need to talk. I can explain everything. It's not what you think. You're overreacting. Let me come home. Fine. Keep the house. Just don't do anything crazy. That last text made me laugh. Don't do anything crazy, He had no idea what was coming. I slept soundly that night for the first time in weeks. Alone in my house. No lying husband beside me. No betrayal poisoning the air. Just peace. And the quiet satisfaction of knowing I held all the cards. The next morning, I called Margaret Chen. He's out of the house. What's next? Now we file for divorce. But Catherine, I need to ask, how public do you want this to be? As public as possible, I said without hesitation. Richard and Natalie aren't just having an affair. They're real estate professionals who tried to commit fraud. Their colleagues need to know. Their clients need to know. Everyone needs to know what they did. Be very careful, Margaret warned. Defamation laws are strict. We can only state facts we can prove. I have emails, audio recordings, photos. Everything is provable. Then let's discuss strategy. Richard works in commercial real estate. Natalie works for Horizon Properties. Their reputations are everything in this business. If we expose them correctly, legally, they won't just lose you, they'll lose their careers. We spent 2 hours planning. Margaret had ideas I hadn't even considered. By the time I left her office, I had a comprehensive strategy for Richard and Natalie's complete professional destruction. That afternoon, James the investigator called. Mrs. Ashford, I've been following them both. They're still seeing each other. In fact, they're planning something big. What kind of big? Richard moved into Natalie's condo. They're living together openly now, and they're scheduled to co-present at the Regional Real Estate Summit next week. It's a huge industry conference. Over 500 agents, brokers, and investors attending. They're giving a presentation on ethics in luxury property sales. The irony was so thick I almost choked. Ethics? I know. I thought you'd appreciate that. Mrs. Ashford, this conference could be your opportunity. If you wanted to make their fraud public, there's no bigger stage in the regional real estate community. My mind started racing. 500 industry professionals, everyone who mattered in our business, all in one room. All there to hear Richard and Natalie talk about ethics. James, I need everything. Every photo, every recording, every piece of evidence. Can you compile it into a presentation? A presentation? I'm going to that conference, I said. And I'm going to tell everyone exactly what kind of people Richard Ashford and Natalie Morrison really are. Over the next week, I worked with James and Margaret to prepare. We compiled every email showing them planning the fraud. Every text message where they mocked me. The audio recording of them laughing about tricking the old hag. Photos of them together at properties they were supposed to be selling. Bank records showing Richard spending our money on her. We created a 40-slide presentation. Professional, factual, devastating. Each slide was carefully vetted by Margaret to ensure nothing could be considered defamation. Everything was provable. Everything was documented. The presentation was titled, A Case Study in Real Estate Fraud, When Agents Betray Their Own Families. The Regional Real Estate Summit was being held at the Grand Harbor Hotel, a luxury waterfront property. I'd attended this conference for years. I knew the organizers. I knew the format. And I knew exactly how to make sure my message reached everyone. I called David Park, the conference director. We'd served on the Real Estate Association board together. David, it's Catherine Ashford. I need to talk to you about the summit next week. Catherine, I was sorry to hear about you and Richard. Are you still planning to attend? Word traveled fast, apparently. Actually, I need to request something. I'd like to add a presentation to the agenda, right after Richard and Natalie's ethics talk. What kind of presentation? A real-world case study about fraud in luxury real estate. I think it would be very educational for attendees. David paused. Catherine, if this is about Richard? David, I have documented evidence of attempted real estate fraud, financial fraud, ethical violations that every agent at that conference should know about. Isn't the whole point of this summit to educate and protect our industry? Another pause. Send me an outline. If it's educational and relevant, I'll add it to the agenda. I sent him a carefully worded outline. No names mentioned, just 2 experienced agents who attempted to defraud a client. Margaret had helped me craft it to sound educational rather than vengeful. David called me back 3 hours later. Catherine, this is explosive, but it's also important. I'm adding you to the agenda. You'll present right after the ethics session. 45 minutes. Don't pull any punches, but make sure everything is documented. Everything is documented, I assured him. The night before the conference, Richard called again. I answered this time. Catherine, thank God. Listen, about the summit tomorrow. Natalie and I are presenting. It would be really awkward if you showed up. Could you maybe skip this year? Actually, Richard, I'm presenting too. Right after you. Silence. Then, you're what? I'm giving a presentation. A case study on real estate fraud. David thought it would be educational. Catherine, what are you planning? His voice had an edge of panic. I'm planning to educate our colleagues. See you tomorrow, Richard. I hung up. My phone immediately rang again. I turned it off. The next morning, I dressed carefully. A navy suit, professional, authoritative, my late mother's pearl necklace. I looked exactly like what I was, a successful real estate investor with 4 decades of experience. I arrived at the conference early. The main ballroom was filling up, 500 seats, nearly all occupied. I saw familiar faces everywhere, colleagues, competitors, people I'd done deals with for years. Richard and Natalie were near the front, reviewing their notes. They looked confident, polished. Richard wore his best suit. Natalie had on an expensive dress and perfect makeup. They had no idea what was coming. At 10 a.m., the moderator introduced them. Please welcome Richard Ashford and Natalie Morrison, who will discuss ethics in luxury property sales. They took the stage to polite applause. I sat in the 3rd row, clearly visible. Richard saw me and his face went pale. He stumbled slightly on his opening line. Their presentation was smooth, professional, full of platitudes about honesty, transparency, and putting clients first. Natalie talked about building trust. Richard discussed the importance of integrity. The hypocrisy was stunning. I watched the audience. People were nodding, taking notes. They had no idea they were listening to 2 frauds discuss ethics. After 45 minutes, Richard and Natalie finished. More applause. They started to leave the stage, looking relieved. The moderator stopped them. Actually, if you could stay for a moment, we have a follow-up presentation that relates to your topic. Catherine Ashford will be presenting a case study on real estate fraud. Richard's face went from pale to gray. Natalie grabbed his arm. They were trapped on stage, forced to sit in the chairs provided for presenters. I walked to the podium. The room was silent. Everyone knew Richard and I were separated. Everyone was curious about what would happen next. Good morning, I said, my voice calm and clear. Thank you to Richard and Natalie for that interesting discussion on ethics. I'm going to show you what happens when those ethics are violated. I clicked to the first slide. It showed the title, A Case Study in Real Estate Fraud, When Agents Betray Their Own Families. I heard gasps, saw people lean forward. This is a true story, I continued, about 2 real estate professionals who attempted to defraud a property owner out of a $2 million home. I know it's true because I'm the property owner they tried to defraud, and the 2 professionals are sitting right here on stage. The room erupted. Whispers, shocked faces. People turned to stare at Richard and Natalie. Let me show you how it worked, I said, clicking to the next slide. I showed the email from Natalie to Richard, the one discussing getting the old woman to sign. I'd redacted nothing. Their names were on every message. As you can see, Agent Morrison referred to me, the property owner and wife of Agent Ashford, as that old woman. She discusses her desire to remove me from my own home. Click. Next slide. The transfer documents Richard had prepared. These are fraudulent deed transfer papers. Agent Ashford planned to tell me they were refinancing documents. He was counting on my trust to sign away my property rights without reading. Click. Next slide. The audio transcript. This is from a recording made in Agent Ashford's vehicle. You can hear both agents discussing their plan. I'll play a portion now. I pressed play. Richard's voice filled the ballroom through the sound system. The papers are ready. I just need Catherine to sign them. I'm going to tell her they're refinancing documents. She'll sign without reading. Natalie's voice. When? Richard. End of this week. Then we file the transfer, sell the house, and we're free. Free of that old hag. The room was dead silent. I could hear people breathing. I clicked to the next slide. Photos of Richard and Natalie together. Intimate photos. At restaurants, hotels, properties, they were supposedly showing to clients. Agent Ashford and Agent Morrison were conducting a personal relationship while planning to defraud Agent Ashford's wife. They used company time, company properties, and client meetings as cover for their affair. Click. Next slide. Bank records. Agent Ashford spent over $40,000 of marital funds on this relationship. Expensive dinners, hotels, jewelry for Agent Morrison, all while planning to steal the house his wife owned. I looked directly at Richard and Natalie. They sat frozen. Natalie was crying. Richard looked like he might vomit. Some of you might be wondering why I'm sharing this publicly. Let me explain. Click. Next slide. It showed their presentation title, Ethics in Luxury Property Sales. These two individuals just spent 45 minutes telling you about integrity, about honesty, about putting clients first. And yet, when it came to their own family, they had none of these qualities. If they'll defraud family, what will they do to clients? I let that sink in, saw people nodding. The purpose of this presentation isn't revenge, it's education. Fraud happens in our industry. Sometimes it's committed by people we trust, people we respect, people who seem professional and ethical on the surface. Click. Next slide. The emergency court order. Fortunately, I was able to protect myself. I obtained an emergency court order transferring the property solely to my name. Agent Ashford's fraud attempt failed, but it shouldn't have gotten that far. Our industry needs better oversight, better protection for vulnerable property owners. Click. Final slide. It showed resources for reporting fraud. If you encounter fraud in real estate, these are the agencies to contact: the State Real Estate Commission, the Attorney General's Office, the Better Business Bureau. Fraud thrives in silence. Exposure is the cure. I closed the laptop and faced the audience. Thank you for your time. Are there any questions? Hands shot up everywhere. The first question came from a prominent broker. Mrs. Ashford, have you filed complaints with the State Real Estate Commission about these two agents? Yes. As of yesterday morning, both agents are under investigation. Another hand. Will there be criminal charges? That's up to the prosecutor's office. But fraud charges are being considered. Someone else. Are you divorcing Agent Ashford? Yes. The filing was submitted this week. The questions continued for 20 minutes. Richard and Natalie sat on stage through all of it, unable to escape, forced to hear every word. Natalie was openly sobbing now. Richard stared at the floor. Finally, the moderator stepped in. I think that's enough questions. Thank you, Mrs. Ashford, for this eye-opening presentation. The applause was thunderous. People stood up, a standing ovation, not for revenge, but for truth, for courage, for exposing corruption in our industry. I stepped off the stage and walked out of the ballroom. Behind me, I heard chaos, people surrounding Richard and Natalie, angry voices. Someone yelling that they'd done business with Horizon Properties and wanted to review their contracts immediately. In the hallway, agents stopped me, shook my hand, thanked me for speaking up. Several women pulled me aside privately. My husband did something similar, one woman said. I didn't have the courage to expose him. You're an inspiration. Another. I'm calling the State Commission about an agent I've suspected of fraud. Your presentation gave me the courage. David Park found me near the exit. Catherine, that was the most talked about presentation in this conference's history. We're going to make it part of our permanent ethics curriculum. I went home that afternoon, feeling lighter than I had in months. I'd done it. I'd exposed them completely. Their fraud, their affair, their cruelty, in front of everyone who mattered in their professional world. My phone started buzzing with messages. Not from Richard this time, from other people. Margaret Chen, the State Real Estate Commission just called me. They're fast-tracking the investigation. This is going to be huge. James, the investigator. Mrs. Ashford, you are ice cold, and I am in awe. That was masterful. Patricia, I watched the video someone posted online. You destroyed them. I've never been more proud of anyone. Video? I checked social media. Someone had recorded my entire presentation and posted it. It already had 50,000 views. The comments were overwhelmingly supportive. She's a queen. This is how you handle cheaters who try to steal from you. Every agent needs to see this. I hope they lose their licenses. That evening, as I sat in my living room, my house, my living room, I got a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Mrs. Ashford? A woman's voice. Young, shaking. This is Natalie Morrison. I have nothing to say to you, I replied. Please, just listen. I'm so sorry. I didn't realize, I knew it was wrong, but I didn't think, you didn't think I'd fight back, I finished. You thought I was just some old woman you could rob and discard. You were wrong. I've lost everything, she sobbed. My job fired me. Horizon Properties terminated my contract this afternoon. My name is all over social media. My mother saw the video. My family won't speak to me. I can't work in real estate anymore. Good, I said simply. How can you be so cruel? Cruel? I laughed bitterly. You tried to steal my house. You called me an old hag. You plotted to defraud me while pretending to be professional. And you think I'm the cruel one? You made a mistake. No. A mistake is forgetting to return a phone call. What you did was calculated fraud. You're facing the consequences of your choices. That's not cruelty. That's justice. I hung up. An hour later, Richard called from yet another new number. Catherine, you've destroyed us. Are you happy now? Yes, I said. Actually, I am. My daughter won't speak to me. My colleagues are calling me a fraud. I can't show my face anywhere in this industry. You've ruined my life. I didn't ruin your life, Richard. You did. When you decided to betray me, when you decided to steal from me, when you decided I was disposable, you ruined your own life. I just made sure everyone knew about it. What do you want from me? He asked, and he sounded broken. I want you to understand that betrayal has consequences, that you can't just use people and throw them away. That 38 years of marriage meant something, even if it didn't to you. I'm sorry, he said. For what it's worth, I'm truly sorry. It's worth nothing, I replied. But thank you for saying it anyway. Now, leave me alone, Richard. Forever. I blocked his number, blocked Natalie's, blocked anyone associated with their fraud. I poured myself a glass of wine and stood on my deck overlooking the water, my view, my house, my life. They'd tried to take it all. Instead, they'd lost everything. And I was just getting started. Previously on the story of revenge, I discovered Richard was trying to steal my $2 million house. I got it transferred to my name legally. I kicked him out. Then I exposed him and Natalie publicly at the Regional Real Estate Summit in front of 500 industry professionals. Their careers were destroyed. The video went viral, but the real reckoning was just beginning. Because what happened next in divorce court would ensure Richard lost absolutely everything he thought he'd built. The video of my conference presentation reached 2 million views in 3 days. It was everywhere: LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. Local news stations picked it up. Real estate wife exposes husband's fraud in viral presentation. The headlines wrote themselves. My phone wouldn't stop ringing. Reporters wanted interviews. I declined most of them. But I did accept one request from a local morning show that focused on women's issues. The host, Amanda Chen, was direct. Catherine, some people are saying you went too far. That public humiliation was cruel. What do you say to that? I looked directly into the camera. I say that fraud is cruel. Betrayal is cruel. Plotting to steal someone's home while calling them an old hag is cruel. I simply told the truth. If the truth destroyed them, that's because their actions were indefensible. The interview clip went viral too. Women across the country were sharing it with comments like, "This is how you handle a cheating husband, and she's not cruel, she's smart." But while social media celebrated, I was focused on the legal battle ahead. The divorce proceedings were about to begin, and I was determined to make sure Richard walked away with nothing. Margaret Chen called me into her office 2 weeks after the conference. "Catherine, I need to prepare you. Richard's lawyer is going to argue for half of everything. The house, your investment portfolio, your business assets, everything. He can argue all he wants," I said. "But he's not getting it. That's what I wanted to discuss. In a normal divorce, even with infidelity, assets are typically split. But this isn't a normal divorce. Richard attempted fraud, and I think we can use that to ensure you keep everything." She spread documents across her desk. "Here's our strategy. We're going to argue that Richard forfeited his right to marital assets when he attempted to defraud you. We have the fake transfer papers he created. We have emails discussing the fraud. We have audio recordings. We're going to show the judge that Richard's entire plan was to steal from you and disappear with Natalie. Someone who attempts to steal marital assets through fraud shouldn't benefit from those same assets in divorce. Will that work? With Judge Barbara Winters? Absolutely. She has a reputation for ruling harshly against financial fraud. And with your evidence, we have a strong case." The divorce hearing was set for 3 weeks later. During that time, the fallout from the conference continued to spread. The State Real Estate Commission suspended both Richard's and Natalie's licenses pending investigation. Horizon Properties issued a public statement distancing themselves from Natalie and promising to review all her past transactions. Richard's consulting contracts were terminated. His professional reputation was in ruins. I heard through mutual acquaintances that Richard and Natalie's relationship had fallen apart within days of the exposure. She blamed him for not being more careful. He blamed her for pushing the fraud scheme. They'd turned on each other like rats on a sinking ship. Richard moved into a cheap apartment across town. His expensive car was repossessed when he couldn't make payments. Without income and with his reputation destroyed, he was spiraling financially. Part of me felt a twinge of something. Not sympathy exactly, but a sadness for what he'd become. Then I remembered the audio recording of him calling me an old hag, and the twinge disappeared. The divorce hearing arrived. The courthouse was surprisingly crowded. Word had spread, and several people from the real estate community had shown up to watch, including reporters. Judge Barbara Winters was a stern woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and no patience for nonsense. She reviewed the evidence Margaret presented: the fake transfer documents, the emails, the audio recordings, the proof of Richard spending marital funds on his affair. Richard's lawyer, a nervous young man named Patterson, tried to argue, "Your Honor, my client made serious mistakes, but he's still entitled to his share of marital assets. Mrs. Ashford obtained the house through an emergency order that was granted because your client attempted fraud," Judge Winters interrupted. "Mr. Patterson, I've reviewed this case thoroughly. Your client didn't just have an affair. He orchestrated a scheme to steal his wife's property through deception. He created false documents. He planned to trick her into signing away her rights. That's not infidelity. That's criminal fraud." She turned to Richard. "Mr. Ashford, did you or did you not create transfer documents designed to remove your wife's name from the property deed without her informed consent?" Richard stood. He looked smaller somehow. Defeated. "Yes, Your Honor, but I wasn't thinking clearly. I was in love and—" "You were committing fraud," Judge Winters said coldly. "Love doesn't excuse crime. Mr. Ashford, you attempted to steal from your wife. You used your position as her husband to gain her trust, then exploited that trust for financial gain. This is one of the most egregious cases of marital fraud I've seen in 23 years on the bench." She reviewed more documents. "I see here that Mrs. Ashford built the investment portfolio that funds your lifestyle. She found the properties. She negotiated the deals. She managed the renovations. Your contribution was minimal, and yet you planned to take everything and leave her with nothing. Your Honor, I made a terrible mistake. You made thousands of terrible choices, Mr. Ashford. Every day for over a year, you chose to betray your wife. You chose to commit fraud. Now you face the consequences." Judge Winters signed documents as she spoke. "I am granting Mrs. Ashford's divorce petition in full. She retains the marital home, valued at $2.1 million. She retains all investment properties and accounts. She retains her business assets. Mr. Ashford, you receive your personal effects, your remaining clothing, and nothing more. Additionally, I am awarding Mrs. Ashford $100,000 in damages for your attempted fraud and your misuse of marital funds." Richard's face crumbled. "Your Honor, I'll have nothing. How am I supposed to live?" "You should have considered that before attempting to leave your wife with nothing," Judge Winters replied. "You're 69 years old. You had a successful career. You destroyed it through your own choices. That's not the court's concern. Divorce granted." The gavel came down with a finality that echoed through the courtroom. People erupted in whispers. I heard someone say, "She got everything." Another voice, "Good. He deserved it." As I walked out of the courthouse, Richard tried to approach me one last time. "Catherine, please, this is too much. I'm going to lose my apartment. I have no income. I'll be homeless." I looked at the man I'd spent 38 years with, the man who'd planned to rob me and mock me. "Richard, I had friends who would have helped you, a daughter who would have supported you, a reputation that could have survived an honest divorce. You destroyed all of that yourself. You chose Natalie over your family. You chose fraud over honesty. These are your consequences. I'm begging you," he said, and there were actual tears in his eyes. "Show some mercy." "I showed you mercy by not pressing criminal charges," I replied. "Be grateful for that and leave me alone." I walked away and didn't look back. 3 months after the divorce was finalized, my life had transformed completely. The house that Richard tried to steal became my sanctuary. I redecorated. New furniture, new art, erasing every trace of him. Every room became mine alone. My real estate investment business grew stronger. Turns out, being known as the woman who exposed fraud made clients trust me more. If she'll stand up to her own husband, she'll fight for us, they said. My portfolio expanded. I closed deals Richard never could have managed. But the most important transformation was personal. I started speaking at conferences about financial fraud protection. I shared my story not for revenge anymore, but to help others. Women approached me after every speech with their own stories of financial abuse, asking for advice. I partnered with Margaret Chen to create a legal clinic offering free consultations for women facing financial fraud from spouses. We called it the Property Rights Protection Project. In the first 6 months, we helped 43 women protect their assets from fraudulent partners. I also started a support group for divorced women over 60. Second chapter met every Thursday at my home. We'd share wine, stories, and strategies for rebuilding after betrayal. The first meeting had 8 women. By month 6, we had 30 regulars. One woman, Sandra, pulled me aside after a meeting. "Catherine, before I found this group, I thought my life was over. My husband left me after 42 years. I felt worthless. But watching you thrive after what Richard did showed me I could survive too. I just closed on my first investment property. Those moments made everything worth it." 8 months after the divorce, I was having coffee with Patricia when she asked, "Do you ever wonder what happened to Richard and Natalie?" "Sometimes," I admitted. "Have you heard anything?" "Richard's working at a hardware store, stocking shelves. Natalie moved to another state, changed her name. Both lost their real estate licenses permanently." I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no sympathy, just nothing. They were characters from a past life, strangers who once tried to hurt me. "And you?" Patricia asked. "Are you happy?" I looked around my home, my beautiful waterfront home, thought about my thriving business, my support groups, the women I was helping. "Yes," I said honestly. "I'm actually happy." 1 year after the conference exposure, I was featured in a national real estate magazine, The Woman Who Fought Back, How Catherine Ashford Protected Her Assets and Changed the Industry. They interviewed me about financial fraud protection, about standing up for yourself, about rebuilding after betrayal. The closing quote was mine. "My husband tried to steal my house, my assets, my future. Instead, he gave me something more valuable, the knowledge that I'm strong enough to fight back, and the platform to help other women do the same. He wanted to destroy me. Instead, he gave me purpose." The article was shared thousands of times. Women sent me emails thanking me. Lawyers reached out to collaborate on fraud protection initiatives. My story became bigger than just revenge. It became about empowerment. On the 1-year anniversary of kicking Richard out, I stood on my deck watching the sunset over the water. My water, my view, my home, my life. I'd lost a husband but gained myself. Lost a marriage but gained a mission. Lost the life I thought I had but built something better. My phone buzzed. A text from the support group. "Thank you for tonight's meeting. You saved my life. My husband was trying to steal our business. I fought back because of you. I won." I smiled and replied, "You saved yourself. I just showed you it was possible." That's what it had all been for. Not just revenge, not just keeping my house, but showing women everywhere that betrayal doesn't have to be the end, that you can fight back, that you can win. Richard had tried to make me the victim of his story. Instead, I became the hero of my own. And that was the sweetest victory of all. Did you enjoy Catherine's story of justice? Did you cheer when she exposed Richard and Natalie at that conference in front of 500 people? Did you feel satisfied when Judge Winters gave her everything in the divorce? Tell me in the comments which moment was your favorite. Was it when she confronted Richard with the fake transfer papers? When she gave that presentation with them trapped on stage? Or when the judge said Richard deserved nothing? Where are you listening from? I want to know how far Catherine's story has traveled. Comment your city or country below. Are you in Texas, California, New York? Or maybe watching from Canada, the UK, Australia, Ireland, South Africa, India, or the Philippines? Let me know. Let's see how many places this message of strength reaches. This story teaches us something powerful, that betrayal doesn't have to break us. That when someone tries to steal from us, gaslight us, or throw us away after decades of marriage. We don't have to just accept it. We can document, we can plan, we can fight back with intelligence and strategy, and we can win. Catherine didn't just get revenge. She protected herself legally first. She gathered evidence. She got professional help. She used the system to her advantage. And then, when she had all her ducks in a row, she exposed the truth publicly. That's not cruelty. That's justice. If you're facing something similar, remember Catherine's approach. Protect your assets first. Document everything. Get a lawyer. Get an investigator if needed. Don't confront until you're legally protected. And when you do fight back, make it count. The conference presentation was brilliant. Exposing fraud in front of industry professionals ensured Richard and Natalie couldn't just move to another market and continue. Their reputations were destroyed because the truth was told publicly. That's accountability. If this story inspired you, motivated you, or helped you see that you can fight back too, please send a super thanks. Your support allows me to keep bringing these stories. Stories of women who refuse to be victims. Stories of intelligence winning over betrayal. Stories of justice served. Every super thanks helps me continue this mission. On your screen are two more incredible stories. One about a wife who discovered her husband's secret family and got the most satisfying revenge. Another about a woman whose in-laws tried to steal her inheritance and lived to regret it. Click either one to continue. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that bell icon for notifications. I have so many more stories to share. Stories of courage, strategy, and women who took control of their lives. Some people say Catherine went too far with the public exposure, but I disagree. Richard and Natalie were real estate professionals who committed fraud. Their colleagues and clients had a right to know. Exposure wasn't revenge. It was protecting others from becoming their next victims. Catherine is proof that 66 is not too old to start over. That 38 years of marriage doesn't mean you have to accept betrayal. That you can lose a relationship and rebuild something even better. To every woman watching this, to everyone who's been betrayed, lied to, financially abused, or made to feel disposable, you are Catherine. You have that same strength, that same intelligence, that same ability to fight back and win. Your house is yours. Your assets are yours. Your life is yours. Don't let anyone steal it, and if they try, fight back with everything you have. Thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting this channel. Thank you for sharing these stories with others who need hope. You're the reason Catherine's story reached millions. You're the reason other women find courage here. Comment below. Was the conference exposure justified? Would you have done the same? Share this video with someone who needs to see that betrayal doesn't have to be the end. Remember, document everything. Protect yourself legally. Get professional help. And never, ever let someone steal what you've built. I'll see you in the next story. Until then, stay strong, stay smart, and never let anyone take what's yours. With love and respect, this is your reminder that the best revenge is protecting what's yours and living well. And sometimes, a well-timed presentation doesn't hurt either.